Welcome to What is Next. What is Next is a very educative program on GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. What is Next is an educative program that is asking questions about contemporary challenges confronting us as a nation. But in the process, we get closer to people we consider to be people with accumulated wisdom. And in humility, we ask them to help us find some relevant answers to such questions. And today, we are with the Vice Chancellor of University of Education, Winneba. And the challenge confronting us is the subject of moral formation of our young people in our various academic and institutions. And the Vice Chancellor who has welcomed us to his office is Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afful-Broni. Prof, welcome to What is Next. And
Thank you.
We are so grateful you made the time to meet us.
Thank you, very Reverend Dr. Opuni-Frimpong. We are also very happy to welcome you to the office of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba, and we are grateful that you could make it all the way from Kumasi. And we thank GTV for this honor. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Now, Prof, different people might have known you differently, but today help us. Who is Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afful-Broni? A little bit of you, sir.
Thank you, Reverend. He's this young man born in a very small village, St. Francis Catholic Hospital at Asinfosu, but from a very small village called Asuna Sempaniye in the Asin North district or in the central region. Born to the late Opening John Broni and the late Mrs. Mary Celestine Broni. Raised in a big family because we had half brothers and sisters apart from my siblings. It will interest you to know that I am the 19th of the 23 children of my father. So I grew up in a very big family, in a huge house of about 20 rooms. And we were raised in a very strong Catholic home. And we had a school across the street, and so no one had an excuse not to go to school. That's a little bit about myself. Thanks for asking.
And Prof, at the moment you're on top of your career as Vice Chancellor of a university, what are some of the values that have kept you over the years, values that you may not want to let go?
Thanks for the question. The first of the values that I treasure most is the value of belief in the omnipotent Almighty God. We are Catholic Christians, and we have been so raised, and it's something that I can't live my life without it. And so you can find even on my executive desk the crucifix, and I am fond of making the sign of the cross and saying my prayers, whether I am in a restaurant or I am in La Palm or I am in the bush or I am on the plane, wherever I am not afraid, and I am very happy. It's part of my life to believe in God and to practice my belief in God. And God who invites me to share in his life and to love my neighbor as myself and to follow in the example of this God who sent his son Jesus Christ to die on the cross for me, and who enables me to call God my Father, and who reminds me that my neighbor is my brother and my sister. And so that's a value that I treasure. The other one is time consciousness, which has even enabled me to develop the time management workshops and the time management research. And it's I owe it to my father, who was very time conscious, who was very punctual, and who symbolically kept the grandfather's clock ticking all the time in the upstairs living room of our big home in Asuna Sempaniye. My father made sure that this clock was always working, so he would wind it quickly, and so every quarter of an hour you would hear the clock ticking and belling. And it was a way of ingraining into our minds the fact that time was ticking, and whether we did something with it or not, time was ticking. And so those who know me know that I do not joke with my time. I'm quite conscious of what it is that time is, and I have tried to be as punctual and as judicious with my time and its usage as possible. Another value that I have has to do with hard work. Hard work, because not everybody will get the opportunity that you and I have had. And so you try to work very hard to get to the top of your game so that you can become the best that you can become and be useful to yourself and to wherever you find yourself. I do not joke with the value of sincerity. The value of sincerity. Otherwise, I would be restless, and otherwise I cannot even sleep. I would have headaches. So I always believe in ensuring that what I say is what I believe, and what I believe is what I do, and what I do synchronizes with the reality. I do not believe in pretending, and I do not believe in telling half-truths, and I do not believe in telling lies. I believe that we must all be sincere, and that's what I have lived my life doing, and that's one of the things that I have lived my life teaching those I have been privileged to have the opportunity to teach in this many places where I have worked. I have also believed in patriotism. Wherever I have been all over the world, I have never hesitated to tell everybody that I am from Ghana. And I'm always looking for opportunity of people asking me, where is Ghana? And for example, in the United States, when you say Ghana, somebody will say, oh, Guyana. And I say, no, I am from Ghana. It's in West Africa. It's in the center of the world. So these are some of the values that I treasure.
Grateful. And as you were talking about your students and the issues of sincerity and patriotism, I believe there are people who want to affirm you, from your church, from students. But are there also people that on our platform publicly you also want to affirm, want to say thank you to? Are there 2, 3 people in your life that on our program you want to say thank you for the impact you have had on my life?
Thank you very much. I want to begin because I know that he is here, God Almighty, to say thank you to him for all that he does and all that he will do in my life. I want to say thank you to my parents. Although I know that they are deceased, I do know that they are here watching over me and watching over us. I want to say thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom, for all that you did for me. I want to thank the Most Reverend Charles Palmer Buckle, the Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast. I've known him for 35 years, long before I was ordained a priest 33 years ago, when he was Father Palmer Buckle, a chaplain at Achimota, and I was a seminarian, and we became very good friends. He had the privilege and had the honor of having him preach at my second mass in my parish in Asinfo, Sudan. I also want to thank Monsignor James Robert Myers, who is in his 80s now. He gave me first Holy Communion in 1969. One of the finest priests in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast. I want to thank the Cardinal, who was my teacher in the seminary some 40-something years ago. And I want to thank Monsignor Martin Esofi, who was also my teacher in the minor seminary in Emisano some 40-something years ago.
Wow. Viewers, this is what is next. And I'm in conversation with the Vice Chancellor of University of Education, Winneba. And we are reflecting on moral formation of our young people in our various academic institutions. Now, Prof, it's being said that education without moral and spiritual values or religious values will always produce intelligent criminals. You are not just a university administrator, you are also an expert and consultant in matters of educational administration, educational management, matters of curriculum. Our schools, especially tertiary institutions, at the moment producing intelligent criminals?
This is a very difficult question to answer, but as I have already said, one of the values that I treasure most is truthfulness. I would say, unfortunately, yes. When you train people, especially from childhood, and do not include or do not ensure that you're doing holistic education, then you are likely to train only the mind and not necessarily the heart, which is why I like very much some of the new things that are being introduced into our new curriculum, where a number of values that did not exist in previous curricula are now being introduced. I strongly believe that we must train the mind, the heart, and the entirety of the human person so that the human person is fully educated, so that whatever people do, they are going to take into consideration everything that they are doing, so that people will not end up adding zeros to cleverly find a way of enriching themselves at the expense of the nation. So yes, if you train people and do not include the moral aspect of it, which is why those who have met me or those who know me know that I have always believed that we should introduce, and thank God we are now in the University of Education Winneba introducing moral and religious and moral education. I think that religion has a role to play in the formation of people, but I think that perhaps more importantly, morality, because it is not the same as Christianity or religion, morality has a role to play in the formation of the human person, so that there are times when you can find a person who doesn't believe in God or may not believe in going to church, but is very upright, is very moral. I think I like to go for that aspect of training people in moral uprightness. And if they choose to be religious, so be it. Of course, I will sanction that. I would encourage that.
Now, Prof, issues about conduct and behavior in public service in Ghana at the moment is a matter of concern. We walked to your office and I read core values, issues, yes, academic excellence, but you talk about good corporate governance, service to the community, gender equity, social inclusiveness, and teamwork. How do you integrate core values into the curriculum that you run, especially in this university that you serve as its chief servant?
Thank you very much, Reverend. I might sound like I'm exaggerating when I say that in this university, when you come, you would see that we are truly practicing these core values. As a matter of fact, having gone to the seminary for 13 years, I find myself so much at home in this university because this university practices these core values. We are not just interested in people doing well, but people doing their best, performing to the best of their ability. I believe and I know that in this university, we are doing very well to serve the community in the many, many areas in which we find ourselves. I do not know of many places where there is gender equity being pursued so aggressively as in this university. 21 years ago when I came, I did not see many people as deans or heads of department or even during procession to congregation. Now we do. As a matter of fact, today as I speak, we have more women as deans than men as deans. So we are walking the talk of gender equity and all these core values. As a matter of fact, there is a seventh core value that we have introduced, and that is student-centeredness. From day one, we felt that the students are not just our primary customers, but that they are our raison d'etre. the students are the reason why we are here. So whatever we do, we must center it around them, which inspired me as a Vice Chancellor to ensure that we have not just symbolically, but in truth and in practice, put the students first. So when you walk around in the main campus of the University of Education, Winneba, you would not miss it. The biggest, the nicest, the newest, and the most beautiful building in this university is the Student Center. So we have practiced what it is that we claim to believe in, that students are at the center of the business that we do. And what do we have in the Student Center? At the Student Center, you have the Office of the Deans of Student Affairs, the Office of the SRC President, the Office of the GRASAC President. You would have the offices for the Counseling, Guidance and Counseling Center. You would have the Office of the University Chaplain. You would have the Office of the Student Services, the place where people can go and pay their school fees and find out how much they owe. You would find a university radio station, university's TV station. You would find seminar rooms and conference rooms, and you would find a bank, places where students can go and relax. Then there is a restaurant. So it is a one-stop shop at the center of the university where students can gather and relax and feel important. Would you believe, Reverend, somebody came to me and said, why do you build the nicest building for the students? Why don't you move your office into the student center? And I said, I am so excited that we have been able to achieve exactly what we are professing. The students are number one in our lives, so they should have the best of the buildings to show that this is the reason why we are here. We are investing into these young people so that we are sure of a better future where we didn't even have the privilege or the opportunities as we were when we were young. We want to provide all these opportunities for these students so that when we are not there, they will be there. So that even before we leave the scene, some of them will, as they have already started joining us in faculty and in administration.
Prof, I just want you to look straight to this camera. What I hear you saying is that education in this country must be student-centered. Even if kindergarten, class 1, secondary school, colleges of education, whatever level, education in this country, policy makers, classroom teachers, administrators must make education in this country student-centered. We don't know who is watching us, but by all means, somebody will be watching us. If it happened that some of your colleagues and educational managers and administrators and policymakers are watching us, talk to them. What I'm hearing from you, the place of the student in the whole educational sector, straight into this car.
Yes. In education, there are different typologies and there are different strategies and there are different philosophies. I happen to believe that in education that matters, and in education that would be beneficial to the nation, one has to adopt student-centered education. People will talk about the banking system, for example, where the teacher or the tutor or the lecturer or the professor is the embodiment of all the knowledge, and so the students or the children or the undergraduates or the postgraduate students are to go there as if they are tabula rasa, as if they do not have any knowledge, and so they are supposed to go there and be like the ignorant, attentive listeners to this expert who has all the knowledge to give them. There is some value to that, but anybody who espouses that and emphasizes that is creating a major problem for the education delivery process. The teacher has to know a lot more sometimes than the student, but the teacher is not the only owner of the knowledge, and the teacher is not the only one who knows something. Even at the kindergarten level, the children, the students, have some experience, they have some knowledge, they have some interest, they have some differences in the way they perceive and the way they understand and the way they follow. So the teacher or the facilitator has to bear first and foremost in mind the student, who has to be at the center of the education delivery process. Education has to be student-centered because it is about empowering this individual who has come with some knowledge, some experience, and who needs to be affirmed, empowered, and helped to add on to what it is that they know. And the teacher who goes into that classroom has to leave the classroom with certain ideas or certain facts that they had or they thought they had altered, improved, added on, some removed, some deleted. This is education that will work. This is education that matters. I believe at whatever level, education has to be student-centered. You take the interest of the student, you take the experience of the student, you take the expectations of the students, you take the anxieties and the weaknesses of the students into consideration. That's where you can reach to the level and lift them up and empower them and make them into responsible citizens. And while doing that, you touching their mind, you touching their heart, you touching their hands, so that once they are graduated, they are able to use their minds. They will be working from their hearts, and they will be using their hands in what it is that they do as graduates from whichever level they come.
Viewers, this is What is Next, and I'm in conversation with the Vice Chancellor of University of Education, Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afful-Broni, and he is calling for student-centered educational system at all levels in this country, that no matter what, the student must be at the center of the learning process in this country. Now, Prof, at the moment, industry is calling for a certain class and cream of students from your university and other universities, students with level of consciousness in matters of conduct and behavior in public service, in private businesses, various universities and academic institutions, secondary schools, colleges of education. Are we ready for such expectations?
Thanks for the question. Yes, we are, and no, we are not. I happen to belong to the university that produced over 80% of the creators and experts who were involved in the new curriculum that has been designed by TTEL, working in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Ghana. And in this new way of doing things, a lot of what you are talking about, Reverend, has been emphasized. So what I'm trying to say is, even if we didn't have those things in existence in our curriculum, because of course there are other ways by which people will come up with this level. If there is, for example, a strong chaplaincy system, if there's, for example, a strong guidance and counseling system, if there is, for example, a strong collaboration between lecturers, administrators in the university or whatever level of education it is, then we are likely to come up with citizens who are responsible and citizens who are holistic in their thinking and in their behavior. But what I'm saying is that with this new curriculum that has come out, we are going to be able to raise men and women who are very responsible and conscious of their role as citizens of this nation.
Let me be more specific. Justice Emil Short, former Commissioner Shrag, is saying that if we want to fight the corruption in this country, the center of the search must be in the various educational programs, curricula that we run. And we must do this from even the basic. We should not wait for Ghanaian children to get to the university. Now, if you hear people like Justice Emil Short calling educational managers, people like you, that you are the one to respond to the corruption challenge in this country, is he asking for too much?
Great idea. But even before we begin from the basic, let us begin from the beginning. And the beginning of the beginning is in a place like the University of Education, Winneba, where we train teachers. We must begin by training our teachers, who are then going to all the levels and doing these great things that the great man is suggesting. So it begins with training the teachers, because that seems to be, unfortunately, one of the problems that we have had in this country, where great reforms are coming, it's developed and all of that. And then within a short time, we are supposed to implement it. And I'm a teacher, I've been born a teacher, I've been working in the educational fields. And in the 80s, I was teaching in Holy Child, and Holy Child Cape Coast. And one of the reforms had just come out. And unfortunately, I think that the manner in which we implemented it was not the best. I think that we should hasten slowly and put a lot of emphasis on those who are going to implement these great things that our thinkers bring about. So I'm saying, so I as a teacher of religious education, was housed in Obuasi with many other colleagues at that time. And it was for a very short time. And we had to go quickly after a week or two and start implementing these great ideas. That's the difficulty. So to Emil Short, with all respect, let's begin with the training of the teachers, who will then go to implement these excellent ideas that we have. Great ideas, but sometimes there seems to be a rush. Let's begin with the teachers. For me, that's the critical thing. Maybe because I am a teacher, maybe because I'm a vice chancellor in a teacher training university.
Prof, when you hear that parents are buying examination questions for BEC, WASI, children who are, fresh ideas, but these ideas are being corrupted by parents and some teachers, are you worried?
Let me be very careful in dissecting this very, very current question. Now, why are parents buying these questions? If the parents are buying these questions to give to the students to practice, if they are buying these past questions to give to the teachers who are teaching these students to as a way of preparing, of trying their hands, I do not have a problem. But I'm not sure whether you are talking about leaked examination questions that...
I'm talking about Apo. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Normally, when you go down, some of the students will tell you, some of them, their parents get the questions, send them. Some teachers, and of course, some people we may not know, but these are innocent minds that we are corrupting. So I'm talking about not the past question for revision.
This would be obviously a very sad situation. What message is the parent giving to this child by this act of intervention? They may myopically think that they are helping their children. It is not by any means necessary, and the end does not necessarily justify the means. So it will be a very sad situation for a parent to be so desperate as to want their children to pass by all means. I'm sure you have seen the WhatsApp video of this young man sitting on a tractor and going helter-skelter with this tractor, that he goes and the holes go into the mud and take the mud, and it's such a bizarre situation. And then the inscription is, You know the inscription. The inscription is, when your CV does not match what you know, when your certificate does not match what you know, then you are going to be given a tractor even though you may not have driven a tractor before. Yes, as Vice Chancellor, as Professor, as Head of Department, as Dean of Faculty, I have sat in a panel interviewing students who walked in with certificates that were so impressive. Now they are coming to the next level, let's say for the master's or for the PhD. And you look at the transcript and you look at the certificate of the student and you ask them what you consider as a teacher to be a very basic questions. And with all due respect, they are beating about the bush. That is, for me, a shame to the student and to their parent who may not have raised them properly. So you see, it goes back again to the moral formation of our children. And some people may think that we reverend ministers are just pushing things into their throats. But there is a role that morality, there is a role that consciousness, there is a role that virtue has to play in the life of any human being in any part of the world. So it's a sad situation which should never be encouraged in any way. Ladies and gentlemen, there is something called tough love. If your child is asking for something and you have it, you don't necessarily have to give to the child. What if it's a knife? So a child has not studied. Let them experience the consequence of not studying. If it means they have to fail and risk it, they will learn a lesson, because at my age, there are some things I learned 55 years ago. I was taught the hard way by my parents. God bless their souls. And no one will tell me that these things are wrong. Parents must be disciplined themselves and teach their children discipline. You do not show love by providing everything and anything because your children, you think your children need them or want them. Sometimes they just want them. And sometimes you are walking in the mall and you see a kid making noise, running after their parent because the father did not buy that extra toy for them. That's sad. That's not acceptable. We must learn how to raise our children the way they should go, so that when they grow, they will not depart from it.
Viewers, this is what is next on GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. We are reflecting on moral formation for our young people in our various academic institutions. Now, Prof, you keep going back to 1960s, you mentioned 1970s, you mentioned the priest who gave you first communion, the one who second, you keep going back 50 years ago, just mentioned 55 years ago. It means the next generation of ideas, those who will talk about 2021, 50 years from now, will be the people you have produced. At the moment, we have free SHS. That is expected to be a game changer. But for those of you who are managing the next generation of ideas beyond free SHS, what do we do differently?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to add my voice to the fact that the free SHS is an excellent idea. The statistics are there. The numbers, the thousands of people who would not have had this quality education. And as somebody who has spent who continue to spend a lot of my time and money in helping to educate, I can say without any fear of contradiction that secondary education has, in my experience, been more expensive than even education at the university level. Because first and foremost, until free SHS, we were paying school fees 3 times in a year. And the number of things that we were paying, taking care of children in the secondary school, was a lot. So free senior high school has been a great relief, and I agree with you using the expression that you use, game changer. Yes, free senior high school has had its challenges. Like any new thing, it's had its challenges. But I think that with all the free things that we have, we need to have a group of educators with the support from the community. And by community, I'm talking not only about parents, but I'm also talking about all the people in the community who play different roles to support not only with their taxes that they contribute in the nation, but to support by creating stronger parent-teacher associations, by introducing different things that the community can bring to bear in the school system. I believe, and I may sound a little too conservative, but I think that much as our young people must be given time to play, I think that their minds are so fertile and so ready to learn that we must also teach them a lot of things. I want to see many opportunities where we keep exposing them to a lot of things so that people in the community can come to help to educate. As a teacher, I like to invite people from town to come. I like to invite the mechanic to come and talk. I like to have the seamstress to come and talk. I like to have people come, the chief, to come and sit down with the children and talk to them about the tradition. So with the free senior high school and students having education for free and all of that, the community can also contribute by training people in right living and in the virtues that we are espousing. Teachers are some of the people in our land who deserve, require a lot more. The salary of the teacher needs to be looked at. The remuneration of the teacher needs to be looked at. The conditions of living of the teacher. I'm from a village. I still go to my hometown very regularly, and sometimes I am compelled to personally and financially support the teachers. But maybe we should have a system that does that so that it doesn't become as stressful, so that if a teacher or a group of teachers find themselves in an environment where you don't find people like myself who probably is fortunate to be able to support out of my own means, then they are not unfortunate. I believe, I think I'm calling on government to take a second look at this whole situation of teachers, because as people say it all the time, the doctor may do all the surgeries and everything, but he was trained by the teacher. The banker, everyone was trained by the teacher. But quite often in this part of the world anyway, the teacher is usually not as well taken care of. The conditions of service for the teacher needs much to be desired.
Yes, again, Prof, in some countries, teachers do not do one lifetime professional examination. There are several professional examinations for professional development of teachers, for them to deliver the high expectations. Now, do teachers have access to such mandatory professional development, especially the resources to develop themselves, to give us a quality education that we desire and we deserve as a country?
Thank you, Reverend. Yes, the question you're asking is very true. In the United States of America, which I'm very familiar with, I do know, and I do have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I do know that they do have to study every so often a certain amount of knowledge, and from which they will be examined, and then they accumulate certain credits, and it goes towards their promotion. We definitely, I mean, coming from the US and looking at where we are as a nation, we have, let me say, we have not yet reached there. I'm an optimist. We haven't reached there, but we are on the way. Lots of great things have occurred. This teacher licensure examination, which had a number of resistance, is for me an excellent beginning. I do not think that we are going to end there. I want to believe, especially with the Minister of Education, who also is coming from the United States, having a lot of experience as an educationist, I do know that, and I have a strong belief that we are going to get there. We will need to invest more into education. I know that His Excellency the President has education as the top of his agenda, and so I am very optimistic that a lot of things have started. I am looking forward, and I'm praying that lot more money and lot more resources will be introduced into the teaching field. And by that, I'm not talking only about the elementary school teacher, but I'm talking about the secondary school teacher, and I'm talking about the university teacher. Because at all the levels, there is none. There is none that is good enough at the international level. Yes, you can see the university lecturer receiving a lot more than the elementary school teacher, but on the global level, the university lecturer's salary is definitely woefully low compared to other places, even in the sub-region. But again, I am optimistic. I am praying that we will invest a lot more into education and invest even more into the conditions of living of the teacher, especially at the elementary level, because there is a lot more that need to be introduced. They need resources, they need books, they need, and thank God, look, just recently we had the Vice President distributing laptops. Some people were criticizing it, and I said, my goodness, there may be some places where they do not have electricity, but the reality is that distributing laptops is such a great thing, because people could go, people could charge, places where they do not have electricity, lots of people have car batteries, they have generators, there have solar energy that can propel and power these laptops. And once you have a laptop, and we were told, and we know that these laptops are not just blank laptops, they are laptops that have documents, that have things downloaded on them. So it's an excellent way to begin. I think we have begun from somewhere, and I can only see more and more being introduced for teachers to prepare themselves and to be upgraded and to be updated as they go along, so that we would have better educated teachers, more professional teachers, better remunerated teachers, and happier teachers, because then you would be practicing better student-centeredness.
You need happier teachers.
You need happier teachers. But you see, more salaries don't necessarily translate into happiness.
Oh, sure.
So,
Prof.
no, not necessarily. You need
more salaries
don't necessarily translate into happiness. You need to create a holistic set of conditions, including better salary.
You are not only university vice chancellor, university administrator, you are a religious person. Years ago, you are meeting a university graduate, secondary graduate, school graduate, and if you say, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm a Methodist, you could trust him or her for something. Now, those who are accusing the church that now get rich quick syndrome, bring this, you will get that. And so there are churches that are teaching that you are at the age of 25, if you don't have a car, you don't have your own house, you are a failure. And now you get young people who think that, fine, then if at the age of 25, I can drive a car like the Vice Chancellor, let me start. So there are those who are accusing the church in Ghana that some of the moral decadence, the church must also admit that they've made contribution to that. You are a church person. If you hear people saying that the church has not done well in this area of morality, how far will you travel with them?
This is a very big question. We probably should have time to devote an entire interview to that. You see, first and foremost, when we make a statement like and use a word so nebulous, if I may be permitted to use that word, as church, it may not be fair, because the way you started, Reverend, I totally agree with you. The Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, those Orthodox established churches are still very firm and still very strict and still very disciplined in their formation. You see, there is a problem with flexibility and liberalism and letting loose and allowing almost anything to go. There are some people who think that the state, for example, should have a hand in what is allowed to go around as church, for example. Why don't we have anybody that regulates the activities of churches so that somebody is able to buy public address system and get a little car and get a little piece of property and build a shed and start running a church? What type of training, what type of formation, what type of upbringing, what type of understanding did this young man have to allow him or to license him to stand in front of the pulpit and to make wild statements, examples of which you give? I think that when people have not been well educated and have not experienced sufficiency of formation, then they will come up and make weird and bizarre statements which will then have effect on the moral fiber of the society in which we are. And so these are some of my wishes, but they are only wishes. I pray that one day soon, because I do know that there are some countries, even in Africa, that are more strict with what is allowed to pass as church. And somebody told me you must have a first degree to be a pastor of a church. I totally support it. You might accuse me of being a chauvinist, but I think that there is a certain level of academic competence and a certain level of maturity and certain level of intelligence that is needed for a person to assume the role of leadership of a community, because a pastor is somebody that people look up to, and if he has not been well trained and if he doesn't have what it takes to guide people properly, then we sometimes perhaps deserve the accusation that we receive. But church, that word church, is a very broad terminology, and so maybe we should take the praise and take some of the blame too.
You mentioned a number of years that you have taught as a teacher. If you get opportunity to choose a career, will you still want to be a teacher?
Absolutely, without blinking. If I had the opportunity, I would teach again and again, because 32 years ago, I was a very young, energetic priest teaching in Holy Child School in Cape Coast. And 32 years down the line, I still have very strong relationship with all these now young ladies who passed through my hands in Holy Child. I think I made some impact on them, and I think they made some impact on me. That opportunity to invest in the mind, in the hands, and in the heart of the young it's a rare opportunity that is an investment to the quality of life of a nation. And I would love to have more teachers who love what they do and who are convinced that they are investing into the future. And so what a better way to contribute to life than to be a teacher.
Prof, your last words to my viewers.
Viewers, I want you to believe in what you do. I pray that you will be time conscious, and I pray that you will believe in God. You may choose to call him Allah, you may choose to call him Ma'u, You may choose to call him Totrobonsu, but there is a God, no matter what it is that you believe in. Let us also try at the best we can to love one another and to be good in what we do. Let us be sincere. Let us be truthful. Let us be punctual. Thank you.
Viewers, I have been in conversation with the Vice Chancellor of University of Education, Winneba, Reverend Father Anthony Afful-Broni. We've been reflecting on the subject moral formation of our young people in our various academic institutions. And he has called for a student-centered system kind of education. Not only at the university level, what he is doing here at Winneba, but he's saying even at the KG, that we should never assume that the child is empty-minded. Children bring something to the classroom. He has also called for happier teachers, that if we want quality education, while he has affirmed that free SHS is wonderful, he is also saying that we should make sure Ghanaian teachers are happy. And then he is calling attention to the churches that let us make sure that the morality that society expects from the church, we don't fail in that calling, that assignment. My name is Kwabena Opuni-Frimpong. I'll come your way same time next week, God willing. Till then, remember COVID is still with us. Keep safe. Let's make sure Ghana is safe for all of us. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make this dear nation of ours great and strong. Prof, on behalf of my viewers, I would have loved to shake hands, but COVID will not allow us. We are so grateful for the time that you spent with us. God richly